Somewhere in America right now, a person in their 60s is making financial plans based on a number, a monthly number, a number that has been promised to them by the United States government in exchange for a lifetime of payroll contributions, a number they have been told they can count on, and that number is in serious trouble. Social Security is the largest government program in American history. In February 2026, it supports over 70 million Americans, including retirees, disabled workers, and surviving family members. It is the primary source of income for roughly half of all Americans over the age of 65. For about a quarter of elderly recipients, it is essentially their only source of income. It is not a supplement for those people. It is the floor beneath their entire financial existence. And that floor has a crack running through it that has been visible for decades, growing wider every year, and addressed by no one with the authority to fix it. Today, we are going to walk through exactly what that crack is, how it got there, what the next economic crisis does to it, and what it means for every working American, regardless of whether retirement feels close or impossibly distant. To understand the threat, you need to understand how Social Security actually works, because there is a pervasive myth that Social Security is a savings account, that the money deducted from your paycheck goes into a fund with your name on it, accumulates over your working life, and gets paid back to you when you retire. That is not how it works. It has never worked that way. Social Security is a pay-as-you-go system. The payroll taxes collected from workers today are used to pay the benefits of retirees today. Current workers are not saving for their own retirement. They are funding the retirement of the generation ahead of them on the understanding that the generation behind them will fund theirs when the time comes. This system worked well for decades because the demographic math supported it. When Social Security was created in 1935, there were roughly 40 workers for every retiree. The contributions of many supported the benefits of few. The math was comfortable. That math has been changing for 60 years. And in 2026, it has reached a genuinely dangerous configuration. Today, there are approximately 2.7 workers for every Social Security recipient. That ratio is projected to fall further as the baby boom generation continues moving through retirement age, and birth rates remain below the levels needed to replace the outgoing workforce at the required pace. The contributions of fewer workers are being stretched to cover the benefits of more retirees. The structural surplus that allowed the system to build reserves over its earlier decades has turned into a structural deficit. Here is where the trust fund enters the picture. During the decades when Social Security was collecting more in payroll taxes than it was paying in benefits, those surpluses were placed in the Social Security Trust Fund, invested in special issue Treasury securities. That trust fund built up to a peak of nearly $3 trillion. It has been serving as the buffer between current revenues and current benefit obligations, as the demographic math has turned unfavorable. But the trust fund is being drawn down. Every year that benefit payments exceed payroll tax revenues, the difference is covered by redeeming trust fund securities. And based on the Social Security Administration's own projections, the trust fund is on track to be depleted in the early 2030s. The most recent trustees report before February 2026 projected depletion around 2033, with some analyses placing it as early as 2031 depending on economic conditions. What happens at depletion? This is the question that most politicians answer in deliberately vague terms because the honest answer is uncomfortable. At trust fund depletion, Social Security's income from payroll taxes would cover only approximately 80% of promised benefits. Without legislative action, benefits would be cut across the board by roughly 20 to 25%. Automatically, without Congress passing a single additional law, the cut would happen by operation of the existing statute. For a retiree currently receiving $800 a month, that is a cut of $360 to $450 every month, permanently. For people for whom that monthly payment is their primary or only income, the consequences are not manageable. They are catastrophic. Now here is where the next economic crisis enters this story, because everything we have described so far assumes roughly normal economic conditions through 2033. And the conditions in February 2026 are not normal. Economic crises accelerate Social Security's problems through two simultaneous channels. The first channel is revenue destruction. Social Security is funded by payroll taxes on earned wages. When the economy contracts, people lose jobs, wages fall. Hours are cut, payroll tax revenues drop. The gap between what comes in and what goes out widens faster than projections assumed. During the 2020 pandemic recession, Social Security's projected depletion date moved forward by several years in a single quarterly update because the economic shock hit revenue so severely. The next significant recession will do the same. A deep contraction could pull the depletion date forward from 2033 to 2029 or earlier, depending on severity and duration. The second channel is political gridlock. Solving Social Security's structural deficit requires either increasing revenues, reducing benefits, or some combination of both. None of those options are politically easy under normal circumstances. During an economic crisis, they become almost impossible. Raising payroll taxes during a recession, when workers are already financially stressed, is politically unthinkable. Cutting benefits during a crisis when retirees are already struggling is equally toxic. And the leaders who would need to make those decisions are simultaneously managing every other dimension of an economic emergency. This is the trap. The time when action on Social Security is most urgently needed is precisely the time when it is least politically feasible. And every year, the structural fix is deferred. The eventual adjustment required becomes larger. Congress has known about this problem since the 1990s. The Social Security trustees have been publishing annual reports projecting the depletion timeline for decades. Commission after commission has proposed solutions. The political will to implement any of them has consistently failed to materialize. There are only a limited number of ways to restore Social Security's long-term solvency, and they are not secrets. Raising the payroll tax rate, currently at 6.2% each for employer and employee, would increase revenues. Raising or eliminating the cap on earnings subject to Social Security taxes, currently around $116,600 per year, would capture more contributions from high earners. Gradually raising the full retirement age would reduce the total benefits paid over a recipient's lifetime. Reducing the benefit formula for higher earners while protecting lower earners would target the cuts more progressively. Immigration that increases the working age population replenishes the demographic base of contributors. Each of these approaches has constituencies that support it and constituencies that oppose it. The opposition has consistently been more effective than the support, and the longer the debate continues without resolution, the closer the automatic cut mechanism gets. Let's now be direct about what this means depending on where you are in your life. If you are within 10 years of retirement, Social Security's status is not a distant abstraction. The benefits you have been planning around face real uncertainty. That does not mean they will disappear. Social Security is politically protected in ways that most programs are not, because its recipients vote at very high rates, and its constituency includes virtually every American family. Some combination of adjustments will almost certainly be made before outright benefit termination occurs. But those adjustments may well include benefit reductions for people who are not yet retired, means testing that reduces payments for higher earners, and cost of living adjustment formula changes that quietly erode real benefit values over time. Planning, as if your projected benefit is guaranteed, is not prudent. Planning that models a range of outcomes, including a 20% reduction, is, if you are in mid-career, the Social Security uncertainty is a loud signal about the importance of building retirement assets independent of what the government may or may not provide. Not because Social Security will disappear entirely, that is unlikely, but because depending heavily on a program facing structural insolvency as the primary engine of your retirement income means accepting risks that your retirement strategy should not have to absorb. Employer-sponsored retirement accounts, individual retirement accounts, and other long-term savings vehicles are not optional enhancements to your financial plan. In this environment, they are load-bearing infrastructure. If you're early in your career, the Social Security you contribute to through your working life will almost certainly exist in some form when you retire, but it will likely exist in a significantly restructured form. The full retirement age may be higher. The benefit formula may be less generous. The tax treatment may be different. What it will not do is function as a reliable, standalone retirement income source the way it has for previous generations. The earlier you understand that and build accordingly, the less the restructuring of Social Security disrupts your long-term financial security. There's one final dimension to this that deserves to be said clearly. Social Security's structural problems are not a natural disaster. They are not unforeseeable. They are the result of decades of deliberate political choices to defer painful decisions to future Congresses and future administrations. The people who will be most harmed by those deferred decisions are the people with the least ability to absorb the consequences. The lower-income retirees for whom Social Security is not a supplement but a lifeline. A 20% automatic benefit cut does not affect a retired executive who draws Social Security as a bonus on top of a substantial investment portfolio, the same way it affects a 72-year-old woman whose Social Security check covers her rent. The program was designed to be a social insurance floor, a guarantee that a life of work would not end in poverty. If that floor cracks under the weight of deferred political choices and economic pressure, the people who fall through it will be the people who had no other floor to stand on. Understanding this is not pessimism. Understanding this is clarity. And clarity, in a situation this consequential, is the only starting point that leads anywhere productive. In February 2026, Social Security is not collapsing. It is not gone, but it is under structural pressure that is real, documented, worsening, and unaddressed. The next economic crisis will accelerate that pressure. The political environment makes resolution harder, not easier. And the clock on the trust fund is moving. What you do with that information, how you plan, how you save, how you engage as a citizen with the political choices that determine this program's future, Those decisions belong to you. But they belong to you only if you make them from a position of understanding rather than assumption. You have been assuming long enough. Now you understand.